All right, there we go. All right, well, we're only about 15 minutes late, so I consider that a success. Thank you guys for joining us here. Happy Monday, wherever you are around the world. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks so much for joining us. Let me turn our music down just a little bit so you can hear. Everything's coming in really loud in my eardrums here, so let me turn it down just a sec. There we go. Yeah, I hope you guys are having a great day wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us. This is episode 665 of Extreme Health Radio. We got Nathan Walz on the show today. It's going to be an awesome show. I'm really excited about this because, like I was just telling him before we went on the air, I'm always excited to talk about light and how that affects our health much more than food. And many of you might be wondering, how the heck does light impact our biology more than food does? So we'll talk about that with him. I'll introduce him in just a second. If you are new to our show and unfamiliar with our work, we do shows 3 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Let me turn this down as well. Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. We're generally late, just so you know. We do our best, but we're always a few minutes late. So anyway, around 10:45 Monday, Wednesday, Friday is when you can join the live show, ask your questions. Got a lot of really cool guests coming up. We actually had a cancellation on this Wednesday, but on Friday we have Dr. Sam Byrne, and we'll be talking with him about holistic eye care, so that'll be a good show. Monday, we've got Michael Goldberg. We'll be talking with him about preventing chronic diseases. And then we have someone really fascinating. I'm really interested to have her back on, and her name is Dr. Amy Prohl, and she does a lot of work with infectious diseases, biofilms, viruses. She has to be probably, I'd say in the top 3 or 4 guests we've ever had on. She's amazing, incredibly smart, and so this is going to be a good show with her next Wednesday. And then next Friday we have Alan Phillips. He has on here ESQ. Is that Alan Phillips Esquire? Is that what that means? But he's a vaccine attorney, and we had him on the show a while back, and I think he's suing. Is he suing? Yeah, he's suing someone over vaccine rights, so he's taking the offensive. So that'll be a really cool show next Friday. So if you haven't subscribed to our show, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening so you get access to all the cool things we have going on a regular basis. Today we have Nathan Walz. He's been on the show a couple times, and I first found out about him from, I believe it was YouTube. I think I saw a few of his interviews with Dr. Jack Cruz, and then he's subsequently been doing a ton of really awesome things with his website, helping people around the world, working with people with their health. And what he brings to the table is something that we're trying to bring more to the table on our show, is this whole piece about light and how light affects our biology more than food. And it sounds like a weird thing, it sounds really preposterous, but when you start learning about it and you start understanding how it all fits together, it's really incredibly fascinating. So let me bring him on the show, and let me turn his audio up and turn him on. Nathan, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Justin, great to be back, and I'm very honored and flattered that you have me back. But I love your podcast, and I listen to it all the time. And probably, your podcast, Justin, is probably my favorite health podcast that I listen to. So
really? No
it's
way.
a real honor to be here.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, it's one of those things where we try to touch on all the angles. A lot of people, like I mentioned before, just focusing heavily on the food. But I also try to bring to the table like the spiritual, the personal development. I know you're really into that. And there's so many aspects to health that it's not just about food, is it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so you're telling me before the show that you just got back from Cancun, huh?
Yeah, so it was kind of a quick vacation, but it was my first family vacation with my son. He's just about 3.
Uh-huh.
So it was his first airplane ride, which was very exciting for him, and his first time at the beach. Well, like a beach, an ocean beach. We have kind of a tiny little beach where we live. It's not very nice. But it was a lot of fun and got some sun, and it was a nice getaway.
Yeah.
Now it's
Now,
snowing out.
did you do all the mitigation strategies that are talked about in the biohacking world with your son and on the airplane and all that good stuff?
It's a little tough to do with him, and I actually probably broke some rules with him, but I did allow him to watch some TV on the flight just to
Yeah.
kind of keep him calm and keep him in place. But I tried to get him drinking a lot of water, and he was outside. He was grounding. We did watch every sunrise when we were there,
Nice.
and we missed a sunset one of the nights, but we watched the sunsets every time, every single night.
Nice.
Other than that, and he spent a ton of time outside grounded.
Wow.
So we tried to get him in the shade a lot. We did put a sun shirt on him because where we live right now, this time of year, like the UV max is a UVI of 3 for the most part. Maybe
Okay.
occasionally we get a UVI of 4. So
Uh-huh.
that's UVI, that's the UV index. That's like how strong the UVB is and how long it's going to take you to get a sunburn, basically.
Uh-huh.
So down there, when we got there, the UVI was 12, and
Wow.
at peak it was 13. So we were going into a much stronger environment. So we were doing some different things. We did use sunscreen on them, which normally I'm not an advocate of sunscreen, but when you go out of your natural environment and the sun's a lot stronger, then sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
You
I
know,
avoided sunscreen for the most part, but but here's the key for people going on a vacation, especially this time of year, Justin,
mhm.
is get out and watch the sunrise. And the reason for that is there's no UV light when you watch the sunrise. So you're
Okay.
getting all of this infrared light, which preconditions your skin for UVA light, which shows up a little bit later. And then as the sun gets a little bit higher, you get UVB light. And UVA light preconditions you for UVB light. So your body is actually able to acclimate better to the stronger sun.
That's really interesting. Okay, so I want to find out more. It's funny that, we all do our best, right? Like one of my vices is, I know you talked about this recently about becoming more of an early riser. And one of my vices, I remember when Luke Story was on the show too, he was saying the same thing to me, that like one of his vices is just staying up late. And that's one of my vices as well, because I mean, as you know, with a toddler, when our kids go to bed, that's my time to work. That's my time to get stuff done. And I realize what I'm doing to myself. It's like Jack Cruz when he knows he's killing himself when he's doing surgeries. So the hardest thing for me is to get that morning sun. And I'm curious from a geeky scientific perspective. You have much more knowledge about this kind of thing than I do. What's going on, despite what you just, or other than what you just said about the morning sun? Why is that so important, do you think?
So when you watch the sun come up, there's a certain frequency of blue light, and I think at sunrise it's around 1800 Kelvin. So that's the color temperature. But as the sun rises and gets higher, the color temperature and the amount of blue changes. And you have a blue light detector in your eyes. So when you watch the sunrise, you don't want your glasses on. You want to take them off. You don't want contacts on
Okay.
because that changes the frequency that goes to your brain, that goes to your biological clock in your brain. Is called your supracosmatic nucleus,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't want to make things too complex, but just think of it as your central clock that controls all the processes in your body. So throughout the day, those processes change. So in the morning, when that blue light hits your eyes, it tells your body or the pituitary gland in your brain to release hormones. Now, what a lot of people do in the morning is they look at their phone or they turn on the news or they turn on a light in their bedroom. That has a very different color temperature. And so, for example, like the color temperature of your phone or of your TV is closer to like 5,800 or 6,000 Kelvin. And that's the same color temperature as the sun at noon.
Mm.
And at noon, your your central clock is telling your body to do other things. So you want your body to be doing the things that it's meant to be doing at 6 or 7 in the morning when the sun is coming up. Now, the other thing that's happening then is there's a really big shift in the amount of blue light. So it's increasing, and that actually is very good, and it helps to make new photoreceptors
Hmm.
in your eyes. So you need these photoreceptors to control these different processes, and getting that sun is a great way to regenerate them and actually to help protect and even restore and improve your vision from doing this over time.
So
So
there's
does that
actual,
make sense?
yeah, there's actual photoreceptors that get restored or get created as the result of natural blue light from coming from the sun.
Yeah, yeah. So they're getting regenerated in the morning.
You know what's crazy is I was reading recently that there's photoreceptors in our gut. Now, what the hell are there doing photoreceptors in our gut? That makes it. It seemingly on the surface level makes no sense, right?
Yeah, well, if you've never heard of it, it might not make any sense, but as you learn more and more about how our human body works, it starts to make more and more sense. So just
Yep.
for people out there, if you've never heard of a photoreceptor, it's a protein that's activated by a specific frequency of light.
Okay.
So one of the main photoreceptors that we have is melanopsin, and that's very sensitive to blue light. And we'll get into it a little bit more later in this talk, but that's one of the reasons that all these new lights, that these energy efficient lights that we have, these screens that we're exposed to,
Uh huh.
most of the spectrum of light they put off is in the blue light range. So that's having a massive effect and change on our photoreceptors, especially the melanopsin photoreceptor that's sensitive to blue light. So in the
Okay.
morning, it's accustomed to seeing blue light at a very low color temperature of around 1800 Kelvin. And this was the case for thousands and thousands of years, right? But it wasn't until the past 10 years or so, like the iPhone came out in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to 12 years ago, most people weren't looking at their phone first thing in the morning, unless it was to like tell the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now people are looking at their phone to check their Facebook, to check their email, to check their Twitter, to check news, um, to see if they have any text messages they missed overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, we had this massive shift just in the past, little over the past decade, of people seeing that the first light they're seeing is very different than it used to be. So we've got this, we have a very high density of these photoreceptors in our eyes, which translates to the timepiece in our brain. But we also have these photoreceptors on our skin. So just putting on glasses at night, the blue blocking glasses like you have on, Justin,
Mm-hmm.
isn't enough because we have photoreceptors on our skin as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and as you mentioned, these photoreceptors not only are they in our eyes and in our skin, they're in our fat and in our gut.
Really?
So they all communicate with each other. So another thing that's happening to a lot of people from getting too much blue light exposure is it's really messing up their digestion, because every process in your body, every single organ is run by circadian clocks. So that means timing is very critical for them to work optimally.
Mm-hmm.
So when your timing is off in your gut, you get some kind of a gut disorder. Either you get constipation, you get diarrhea, you have a poor gut microbiome, you get IBS, or one of the common chronic gut disorders that we're seeing. And the last time we talked, I think it was either the last time or first time, we were talking about how colon cancer used to be number like 35
Yeah.
for cancers.
Uh-huh.
Now it's number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another kind of casualty of all this chronic blue light exposure that we're all exposed to today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating when you mentioned the photoreceptors in our skin, because as I learned that, it's like that quote, was it Oprah, I think, said, when you know better, you do better, something like that. And but I don't think necessarily that's the case, because sometimes I know better and I don't do better. But I guess you have the opportunity to do better, right? You have the knowledge. So some days I forget, but most of the time I'll move the mic. I wear this scarf here to protect from the blue light, because the computer that I'm doing this show on, I can't run Iris on it because the output will be orange for everybody. And so I have it's full 6,500 Kelvin, and people ask me why I wear my orange glasses instead of my yellow ones. And I'm covered all the way up on all my shows now. But something I'm wondering about though is that, like, right now you don't have to cover up as much, even though you're sitting in front of a computer, because you have natural light coming in. For me, I've got 100% fake light on me. And so I wonder, like before the show, I'll go out and I'll look at the sun right before every show that I do, just to get that resetting, that calibration. But while I'm doing the
that's
show,
very
like
smart.
my hand right now, if you can see on the video, is there's a little light over here. Now the photoreceptors in my hand, like, does it mess up if we're exposed to any light? Do you think? Like, how do you think this, impacts us overall?
Well, it's a good question. So, are you saying that if just your hand was exposed, how is that affecting the rest of you?
Yeah, like for example, like my hand is exposed and it's being exposed to fake light that's got tons, of huge, probably close to 6,000 Kelvin, I would imagine, huge amounts of blue. And by doing that, can I reverse that just by going outside and getting my hand in the sun? Or does that mess something up for the timing for everything all day long, do you think?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and it really depends on the other lights you have in your environment. So we were talking about this a little bit before the show, but so historically, the only light we were exposed to during the day was sunlight,
Uh huh.
right? Then 120 years ago, 130 years ago, we got the incandescent light bulb. And for the most part, throughout the history of modern lighting, we were exposed to incandescent light bulbs. Then in the 50s and 60s, we got fluorescent bulbs. And for the most part, unless you went to school or worked in an office or in an industrial building or a shopping store or something, you weren't exposed to that because homes, for the most part, all had incandescent light bulbs. Okay. But then if you go back to like I guess the late 90s, early 2000s, those curly Q compact fluorescent bulbs became more popular,
Uh huh.
right? And now, in the past couple of years, LED bulbs have become popular. Now, the whole point of me bringing that up is I don't use those bulbs. I have a halogen bulb to the right of me, and I have natural light coming in. But even if I didn't have natural light coming in, me having this halogen bulb is a lot different than you being in there only having LED and compact fluorescent bulbs. And the reason is because the halogen bulb has a lot of red and infrared light also coming off of it. Where these modern lights that we're exposed to now, not just at work and school and stores, but also in our homes, because a lot of people have switched to energy efficient lighting,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't have any infrared light in it. So what's the antidote to blue light? It's red and infrared light. So yes, going outside is definitely helping you 100%. But if you're inside and you don't have any natural light and you don't have like an incandescent bulb or a halogen bulb, you're doing a lot more harm than somebody else that's inside that is using halogen or an infrared bulb because you're getting that infrared, which is regenerative. And I didn't even realize this, but I was reading this research paper when I was down on the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about melatonin. And I thought we only made melatonin using UVA light, but there's two kinds of melatonin. There's circulatory melatonin, which mostly comes into play at night.
Okay.
So when you're exposed to darkness, your pineal gland releases melatonin. And after about 3 hours of darkness, it gets to a high level and you go into a deep sleep, which is very good.
Okay.
But there's also subcellular melatonin. And melatonin is not just to help with your circadian rhythm and help you sleep, it's also a super potent antioxidant. It's anti-cancer. It controls your mitochondrial function.
Uh-huh.
So your mitochondria, when exposed to this near infrared light, not just from the sun, but also from incandescent light bulbs or halogen bulbs, makes melatonin at a local level. So when I say local level, if it's just my face being exposed to it, but actually, infrared can penetrate your clothing too.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
wherever that infrared light is penetrating, you're making melatonin. So going back to your original question is, how much harm is going on is if you don't have any infrared light sources in your studio, Justin,
I don't.
you're doing a lot of harm because you're getting all the inflammation, but you're not getting anything to counteract that inflammation.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
if you were to install, or what kind of lights are in there? Do you have incandescent or halogen lights in there?
Well, in our studio right now, the background is just a bunch of just little, prop lights and stuff. But I do have a window, and there's some light coming in from the window. I turn all of the lights off, so at the top of our studio, it's just like those basic office studios, because we're in a big, huge office building that we rent a studio out of, and I don't turn any of the studio lights on at all, because for that reason. So I just have this one light in front of me, and then I've been considering getting a red light, but the output of the show would be so wonky. But maybe it's one of those things, like we're talking before the show with Dr. Cruz. He just doesn't compromise. If you do a show with him and it's in the evening, like we're joking, your interview with him, he was basically in the dark. But that would have an effect. He doesn't have to make a living off of his or off of being interviewed. So he's been on 1,000 shows, and that doesn't cost him anything. So that would be almost akin to him having to do his surgery in the dark or something, where it actually affects his work. And so I'm trying to find a balance. I know I know Juve makes a light that you can put on your desk, and I know that Brian Hoyer, the building biologist, has a near-infrared light that you can get, that's available in our store. That's on our, that you can put on your desk. So I'm trying to figure out some strategies here.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do. And Justin, I have a UFO red light that's normally on behind me, because I spend a lot of time on the computer. Okay. I did turn it off for this interview, so it didn't have a red hue. But I have this is an 850 nanometer light, so you can't really see it.
Oh.
But this is in the near infrared range, and this is super cheap. They sell these to go with like security cameras.
Really?
And it actually has a DC inverter, so it has a very low flicker effect.
Now, that's a light that's not emitting any visible light?
Correct.
Oh.
So it's just, I have it there just to add more infrared light into my environment. Because Justin, here's the other thing. Like this whole like push for green energy, it's a complete scam. It's complete BS. Like I love the environment. I love Mother Earth. But a lot of the stuff they're doing is really harming people. Some of it makes sense. Some of it doesn't. So, for example, a lot of windows today have coatings on them to block infrared light. And the reason for that is because if you live in a warmer environment, it does cost a lot of money to cool the building.
Okay.
So you're saving money on electricity costs, which I totally get and makes sense. Mm-hmm. But you're reducing a lot of that natural infrared light to come in that the sun makes that you would normally get. These filters are blocking that out. They also block out most UV light. A little bit of UVA light does come through, but some window coatings block 100% UV light.
Wow.
But so even some people might have an office with their own window, but if the sun's shining right in your window and you're not really feeling any heat from it, you are getting natural light, but you're missing out on a lot of the benefits that you normally would get from the sun, because they're blocking it out to save energy costs. Mm-hmm. But back to you. I mean, Justin, at the very least, if you don't want the red hue, just get either an incandescent bulb or a halogen bulb. That's going to be emitting near infrared light. So if you think about it, most of us you and I grew up in homes with incandescent light bulbs. Mm-hmm. There weren't too many fluorescent bulb options for in homes. There was mostly only for very big buildings, right?
Right.
And that mitigated a lot of the harm we were getting from all this blue light and from not being outside. So here's the other thing, Justin, a lot of people don't realize is there's different kinds of inflammation. So when you get like blue light from your cell phone, from an LED light, from a compact fluorescent bulb on you, it makes something called reactive oxygen species. So that's inflammation. Okay. But there are different kinds of reactive oxygen species, and they have different half-lives. So everyone's all worried about UV light, but UV light doesn't penetrate very deep, and it does create inflammation. It does make these reactive oxygen species and reactive nitrogen species. It makes different kinds of inflammation, but they have a very short half-life. The other thing is your skin turns over very quickly. So I'm already peeling a little bit. but your skin completely turns over like every 3 weeks. So you're getting inflammation in there, but your cells are constantly repairing themselves.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing with blue light. Oh, the other thing about UV light is you get a sunburn. So your body tells you when you've had too much UV light, get out of the sun. Now, not everybody wakes up to that. So, when I was down in Cancun at the pool,
Yeah.
I'd see these people drinking all day, and they were like red as could be, and they weren't really aware of it because they were so drunk.
Right.
But for most of us, we have a built-in warning system when we've had too much UV light.
I see. Okay. Right.
Okay. But we don't have any internal warning system from when we've had too much blue light. And blue light penetrates deeper than UV light. So it's penetrating into our fats, penetrating below our skin into our fat. And that's the whole reason you wear that scarf is to cover your thyroid. Because
Right.
blue light penetrates to the depth of your thyroid, creates inflammation. The inflammation made from blue light lasts a lot longer than the inflammation made from UV light.
Interesting.
So now you've got people exposed to all this blue light all day. It's creating inflammation, and there's no red light, not even when they go home for the most part, because they've been convinced to get rid of energy inefficient, incandescent, and halogen bulbs in favor of energy efficient LED and fluorescent bulbs, which have zero of this near infrared light, which does all the regeneration, the repair, and it counterbalances this inflammation that you're getting. So our counterbalance is gone. So we're getting a whole bunch of inflammation. We're not getting the repair. And over time, this is leading to all these different symptoms that we're seeing with people, and especially with children, because children are more sensitive to this.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, all of this stuff with light, and when you start understanding really what it's doing to our mitochondria, our energy, or all that stuff, it's so fascinating, and it blows you away because we're taught our whole life that it's all about food. And I mean, food is a huge thing. I think that some of the quote light gurus don't place enough importance on food, but I think that the food gurus don't place any importance on light. And I think you have a video, don't you, where you kind of map out the brain and you say that like 60 or 70% of the brain is actually tied to light instead of food.
Yeah, so I did. I've done a blog post. I think I did a recent Instagram post on it too, where I was talking about how, yeah, only 10% of the neurons in your brain are influenced by food. Because when you eat food, that's all accounted for by the leptin receptor, which is in your hypothalamus, which basically maps out to 10% of your brain.
Okay.
And then it's probably on my website somewhere too. But for light, you have 8 different lobes in your brain, and light maps out. Light's basically projected from those different lobes in your brain to 46% of the neurons in your brain.
46%.
So the light frequencies that you get account for 43% of what goes on in your brain. Food only accounts for 10%.
Wow.
So I agree 100%. Food is important. And see, food becomes more important when people never go outside and get natural light. When people are indoors all the time, you do have to be more careful about what you eat. But on the flip side is you can be eating the best diet in the world, and you're only going to get so far if you don't fix your light environment.
Now, do you think it's true what Dr. Cruz says about, the whole bit he's got about, it's really damaging to your gut and to your microflora to eat like a banana in the wintertime in New York City, when a banana is, supposed to be eaten in tropical environments? Do you think that's really affecting the microbiome? I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? But I don't know. Do you think
it's not so much the microbiome. It's really, it affects your circadian rhythm, because the way we make energy, so at the end of the day, your health is determined by your body's energy production, which happens in your mitochondria. So just by going outside and getting exposed to sunlight, whether it's UV light or it's red or infrared light, your mitochondria makes energy. So food is just a store of light energy. When you eat food, your mitochondria are using electrons and protons from that food to make ATP, which you use for energy. Now, here's the thing. Those electrons, so an electron from a piece of lettuce grown in your backyard has different energy from a banana grown down in Mexico or South America somewhere.
Okay.
And your mitochondria can detect that energy level. So it can detect the basically the light environment that food was grown in, and it knows that something is off.
Mm.
If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it makes sense that like these mitochondria are almost like sending out radar signals to try to determine what kind of environment you're in a physical place, but then also the food you eat also is an indicator to the mitochondria sending out these radar signals. That food is also an indicator of what kind of environment we're in as well, right?
Yeah, so think of your mitochondria as like antennas, which can detect the energy in your environment.
Okay.
But then when you eat food, that food gets broken down into electrons, and the energy of that electron is used by your mitochondria basically to make ATP.
Mm-hmm.
So your mitochondria, when you're eating food that's from your environment, the light signatures match up. So when I say the light signatures, the energy that your mitochondria are detecting in your environment, and then the energy signature from the electron from the food that you ate, they match up.
Okay.
Okay, but when you eat a banana, those electrons aren't matching up with the energy in your environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes
Does that
sense.
make sense?
And this is kind of like the scientific explanation for eating local, eating in season, because we kind of just know
Exactly.
that's the case, but this is kind of the science a little bit behind it, right?
Yeah. So having an occasional banana, eating some things outside of your environment aren't going to kill you. But when you chronically do that over time, it's just one more thing. It's like one more drop in the bucket of inflammation, that when that bucket of inflammation overflows, you get your different symptoms.
Right.
So it's one more thing that's messing you up.
Mm-hmm.
I eat bananas in the winter sometimes. Not a lot, but sometimes I just feel like having a banana. Sometimes I'll be someplace and there's a banana and I want to eat it, and I eat it. And I don't care. That's fine. I'll eat ice cream. I'll eat pizza sometimes. I'll eat these things that aren't considered healthy, and it doesn't really affect me because I do it once in a while. But what I'm doing a majority of the time is really good for me. It's helping me. It's building up my health.
Yeah, so well said. And we're with Nathan Walz right now. I hope you guys are enjoying the show with Nathan Walz. His website, if you guys want to check him out, journeytooptimalhealth.com. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now. I highly recommend going to his website and checking out what he's doing, because he's working with people around the world, and you can get a consultation with him. You can work with him on a month-by-month basis. And it's super, super awesome, because there's not a lot of people in my experience that really understand the success piece, understand the light piece, and tying all this stuff together. If you're really kind of stuck with your health, I'd recommend checking out some of his work and maybe signing up to do a 3 or 4 month a session with him. I think he works month by month, and part of what we do on our show is to educate and to help bring to light all of this kind of information that I think is super, super critical. And one of the things I wanted to tell you guys about that we use in our sort of regular practice is the Bellicon rebounder. Now, this is an awesome piece of equipment. For those that don't know, rebounding is incredible for your lymphatic system. You have more lymphatic fluid than you do blood, which is crazy, right? So what are you doing with all this lymph system fluid? It's filled with millions of one-way valves that simply cannot open and close without manual stimulation. There's no pump for the lymph system, and so it's really important to flush that out. Recently, we just had Dr. Randy Tent on the show talking about rebounding. Check this out.
I listened to how you about you're using your Bellicon trampoline, which I have 4 in my house. Actually, everywhere I go, I'm bouncing. Trampolinist will run over a gym rat, and he'll keep going. He'll take out 3 gym rats at the same time because we're denser. We're used to the tug of the earth. It's a totally different thing. I take the people who think they're in shape at a gym, I put them on a trampoline for 15 minutes. They want to get off in 10 because they can't do it because they're weak. And they don't realize how weak they are. They have 12 strong muscles, and that's it. That's the last one you want to deal with as a trampolinist, because I'll guarantee you the trampolinist is going to win. I read the book when I was about 18, The Miracles of Rebound Exercise by Al Carter. The guy could do 40 one-arm push-ups. He never did push-ups. He was a trampolinist. The guy was a beast. So you're giving great advice, and I can't endorse that enough because it'll make you stick out as you age from the people that don't do it. I've been playing hockey 4 nights a week for like 30 years, and I play over 40 with a bunch of animals. Between my trampoline and my minerals, I got to keep my frame strong because it's a train wreck watching what people are trying to do, exercising without doing it, thinking that the prescriptions is the pathway to health.
Yeah, a lot of people do. They think that, right? The prescription is what's going to heal them, and it's a trap, my friends. Don't get into that trap. Whatever you do, take care of your health. Take care of this gift that we've been given, our life. And one of the ways I do that every day is I jump up and down. If you guys follow our Instagram, you probably see me doing it every day. I always like to go outside, and when I go outside, I'll ground myself as well with like a little grounding rod directly to the grass, and I'll listen to a podcast or I'll listen to something fun. And I just jump up and down. And what's great too about it is that this Bellicon here, what I love about it is that it's silent. So it uses, like, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it uses like these flexi ropes here instead of those loud springs. So if you have kids, you can do this, in the bedroom next to them, or probably even in the same bedroom, and you're not going to wake them up. And I've had mine for about 8 years now. And I recently just was the first time I had to change the springs. What's cool too is that if you get one of these things, the legs fold so you can put it right underneath your bed, and it's a great place to store it. And here's a picture of Kate jumping on ours when we got ours about 8 years ago. Super fun, super cool. And I love doing it after a workout as well. So I'll lift a bunch of heavy weights, do some squats, do some deadlifts, and then I'll jump up and down on this thing, and it just increases endorphins, flushes out all this lactic acid, increases circulation. It's one of my go-to tools, and I'm a big fan of it. Here's me standing with ours when we had our little dog Maggie back in the day. So I highly recommend it. And if you guys want to check it out, it's available on our website. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check it out in the description below. And then the other product I wanted to tell you guys about was this, what I like to call the original superfood. I mean, superfoods are kind of like a dime a dozen. Everyone's calling their stuff superfood these days. But aloe vera has been consumed for centuries. And it is absolutely one of the best foods you can eat on a regular basis and consume. The problem with that, it's hard to work with, although it's not too difficult. You can cut it open. And that would be the best way to do it, is to grow it yourself. That's the best way, I think. I mean, look at this magical food. If you're watching on YouTube, check that out. It's unbelievable how impressive this food is. And what's great about aloe vera is that it's got over 75 different active compounds. So it's got everything from vitamins, minerals, enzymes, amino acids, unique sugars like polysaccharides. It's antiviral, it's antibacterial, it's antifungal. It's really a great thing for your immune system as well. And I was reading somewhere recently that it actually induces macrophages to produce interferon and tumor necrosis factor A. Now, I can't say that it cures anything, but I would say it's very, very healthy to put in your body. And the guy that started this company, Rodney Stockton, he lived till he was like 96. And of course, he said that the reason why he lived so long was because he consumed daily aloe vera. I mean, what do you expect him to say as the owner of the company, right? But regardless, it's one of the best foods you could ever consume for your gut health. And here's a little clip with Dr. Donnie Wilson that we did a while back about gut health and aloe vera and how that affects your gut.
And then I encourage, we can talk more about this. What do I do to help people speed up the healing of leaky gut?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you mentioned aloe before, mm-hmm. and that is one of the herbs that I definitely recommend, using for helping to heal leaky gut. You want to use herbs that are anti-inflammatory and soothing and healing to the intestinal lining. So aloe is a great one.
Aloe is one of the best foods, my friends. And what's cool about this one is that they'll ship it to you. They're super anal about how they work with it. So they won't ship on weekends. They won't ship if it's super, super hot, because they send it to you sort of half frozen, and then you just thaw out some before you go to bed each night. You can take like a therapeutic dose, which is like 6 to 8 ounces, or just a regular dose a day, a couple ounces a day. And I'm telling you guys, it'll improve your gut health. It's just an incredible food. Big fan of this stuff, Stockton Aloe 1. So if you guys are wanting to check it out, you can check it out in the description below if you're watching on YouTube, or if you are listening on the podcast and you're interested in the Bellicon Rebounder or this Stockton Aloe 1. Let me get the show for this particular show. I think it's 665. Yeah, so it's extremehealthradio.com/665. And let me bring Nathan back on. And we have a few questions. I think we should take a couple questions from the chat room. Let me bring me back on first. I'm playing producer here. And let me bring Nathan back on as well. And we have a few questions. Nathan, do you want to take a couple of those questions from the chat room?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, cool. We had one here. Let's see. If you guys have any questions for Nathan, make sure to type them in all caps if you could. That would be amazing. And let me read a couple here. Let's see. Big Fat Mama says, I just can't get over the name. It's so great. Question. Both of you have low flicker red or orange red light. Which brands do you guys have? So I guess she's asking what kind of brands of red light that you have.
Yeah, well, I've got a whole bunch of different kinds. So this one I showed before, I just got on Amazon. And the reason this is low flicker.
What's that called?
I forget. I can send you a link, Justin. I got this a while ago.
That'd be great.
But it has a DC inverter on it. So most of the things you plug in, so like the electricity in your home is AC, which means alternating current.
Uh-huh.
And AC, it's actually not too healthy for you. And it creates a lot of flicker in light bulbs, especially LED and fluorescent bulbs. Now, DC, on the other hand, eliminates most of that flicker. So, this is another thing I have. It's called the Tend light. You can buy it on Amazon. I think it's kind of overpriced. I got it a while ago before they had other options.
Okay.
But anything on a battery is also DC current. And when your mitochondria make energy in your body, that's also a DC current.
Okay.
So that's one of the ones I have. I have a UFO light, which doesn't have a DC inverter, so that is not a low one. But if you want to buy a red light and kind of not spend a whole lot of money and have low flicker, just get one that has like a DC inverter, or you can get a flashlight. So I have another flashlight. It's $4.99 on Amazon. It has a glow-in-the-dark handle, and it's 660 nanometers.
Really?
So that's another really good one to use at night, to read to. If you have to get up during the night, that's a good flashlight to use. That's what I use.
Uh-huh.
I also have an infrared light. It's about the same size as a conventional light bulb, and I got it from a pet store. They sell it for lizards.
Oh.
So that's another bulb that I use to read to at night. It's not LED. It's an incandescent bulb, so that has a lower flicker too. Incandescents do have some flicker, but they have less than fluorescent and less than LED. Mm-hmm. So I know I didn't give you too many brands there, but I did give you some ideas on things you can do to help kind of avoid flicker.
Yeah, it's interesting. Isn't it funny how we just I'm the biggest guilty of this the most, is we try to do whatever we can to subvert nature and to stay up as long as we can. So we try to get all these fancy lights and try to, do what we can to stay up. And it's like nature is screaming at me and screaming at you like, dude, it's dark. Go to bed. Just go to bed.
Yeah, totally.
That's crazy, isn't it? Like, why do we do these things? I don't know.
It's the world we live in, huh?
I know, it's so crazy. Like, I have one of those chicken lamps. What are those things called? Are they incandescent? The red bulbs. I have one of those.
Yeah.
And
those are awesome too.
Yeah, I have a Juve lamp, and I wear my glasses at night, and I have those sunlighting bulbs where they're LEDs, but according to Brian Hoyer, they produce almost zero flicker, which I thought was very bizarre. He tested it with all of his equipment, so we have a bunch of those red bulbs, but it's just so funny. Like, why are we turning on all these lights when we should be in bed? I don't know. I think we're permanently screwed up by our modern culture.
Yeah, and the other thing, another good source of red light that's cheap and accessible to most of us are incandescent light bulbs and halogen light bulbs. And the higher the wattage on the bulb, the lower the flicker effect.
Oh.
So, at a minimum, just get rid of all of the energy efficient light bulbs in your home, all the LEDs, all the compact fluorescents. In compact fluorescents, the other thing about them is they are a huge environmental hazard. So you're saving some money on your electric bill. But if you read the fine print on those bulbs, it says to call the EPA if you drop one and break one.
I know.
Those things are full of mercury vapor. There's probably other chemicals in there too. And how many people, Justin, do you think take their bulbs to a place that recycles them when they burn out, as opposed to just throws them in the garbage, then they end up in a landfill where they get crushed?
Right. Yeah, it's probably the majority of places just do that because they're not, thinking about the environment. It's like plastics too, like all the plastic we're using, we're not thinking about where it's going after we're done, or, it's damaging not just to us, but also to the environment as well. And, for the lighting, we have those big long fluorescent tubes in our garage, and I turn those off. I don't even turn those on when I'm working out. If I'm in the garage, I don't have those things on. If I'm in the garage at night, I have one of those square red light kind of LED things, and I'll do stuff in there at night if I'm working out under red light. But it's incredibly damaging, these things, aren't they?
Yeah, well, Justin, the other thing is, do you have a trimeter?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so take your trimeter sometime and put it on the, I think it's the electric field. It could be the magnetic field. I'm pretty sure for the tube lights, it's the electric field.
Okay.
But it puts off a ton of EMFs.
Really?
And, my mother had a bunch of those that she was working under at her house. So I brought this over and I showed her. And now lots of times, she'll have those lights off and have some just brighter lamps, like halogen lamps in there. So that's the other thing, is they put off very high amounts of EMFs too.
Mm-hmm. Something to consider. Let's see if we've got another question here. Hopefully that helped you. Got Beck from Ohio. Great to have you, Beck. Let's see. This is great. We've got, let's see here. Another question. Do you suggest adding UV bulb to our work environment from a black light, for example, for the whole workday after the sun's UV comes out, or only for intervals during the day? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I have one on right now behind my computer, and I pretty much keep it on. I leave it on in my office. I don't keep it on at night. So if you have a true UVA bulb, you can actually keep it on throughout the night, and it's not going to impact your sleep, because it's blue light that controls melatonin. Also, green light does too. But here's the thing. When you test most UVA or black light bulbs, there's a little bit of blue light too. So I would just use it during daylight hours and then turn it off at night. And there was actually, I think we may have discussed this on our last show, Justin. But if you read John Ott's book, Light and Health, he talked about all these servers at this restaurant. I think it was in Chicago, where they had like the only lighting they had in there was black lights.
Really?
And all the servers had very good health. They all had great eyesight. They were all. Another comment they made was they all were very pleasant to be around a majority of the time. So they were like, in good spirits and good moods. Right. And the reason is because they were under that UVA light. UVA, not only do you make melatonin, you also make serotonin and dopamine too. So yeah, it's a good idea to have those in your environment. And you can experiment. If you think you have a really good one, you can leave it on at night and see if you sleep any better. I did it for 2 weeks straight, and I actually slept a little worse just because I sleep better in pitch black.
Okay.
But some people report using them at night, and it works pretty well for them. So I don't think there's any harm in just trying it out for a couple of weeks. It's a lot better than sleeping, next to your iPhone or something like that.
Oh God, yeah.
And see what it does for you.
Yeah.
But you don't want that to replace you going outside. So get into the habit of, at least ideally once every hour, just getting up and going outside for like a quick couple minutes, walk around your building, or just go, if you have a dog, take your dog for a quick walk, anything to get you outside so you get that full spectrum of light from the sun. Because the sun has a huge spectrum. And we only have research on a few of these things. So the spectrum of sunlight is something like from 250 nanometers, which is down in the UV range, all the way up to 4,000 nanometers, which is red and infrared range. So we have like a lot of research showing us that 670 nanometers, for example, is super healthy. And that's one of the key spectrums that our red blood cells absorb. But like we were talking about before the show, a lot of this research has been done in like 2015, 16, 17, 18. Wow. So the stuff we're discussing now, Justin, we're just learning about. We're just finding out about this. I guarantee there's a whole ton of stuff that we have no clue about. There's other key frequencies of sunlight that do this in our body, and we don't know.
Yeah, oh yeah, so there has to be, right? I was reading just recently on
nature. Oh, I'm sorry. What's that?
No, sorry. Go ahead. You were saying.
I was just going to say, you don't want to try to outsmart Mother Nature 100%. So there are some hacks you can do because we all have our jobs, and a lot of us have to work on computers or indoors or whatever. So get your UVA light, get your red light, get those things, but also figure out a way to get outside every single day, and to do so, especially in the morning for sunrise, a little bit later in the morning, a little bit later after that, a little bit later in the afternoon. And if you can watch the sunset, those are some like very simple key things that you can do that are really going to move the needle on your health.
I think so too. Yeah, I've been toying around.
Justin, what were you saying?
Oh no, I've just been toying around recently with the idea of getting a tent and sleeping in our backyard just to get 8 hours. Because you think about when you were a kid, like how much time did you spend outside? Probably not even 8 hours, but you probably spent way more time outside than you do now. And I'm of the opinion that, man, the more time we can be outside, the better. And I may seem like a freak to people to sleep outside, but if you're getting a third of your time outside, I mean, that's huge, even if it's nighttime, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, anytime you can be outside, that's going to have a positive benefit.
I was reading something recently with Dr. Mercola was even saying that, I think he was saying in one of his articles, there's 1,500 different frequencies of light. And then Dr. Cruz was saying the amount of wavelengths, I think is like, I may have these two mixed up, the wavelengths and the frequencies, but he was saying, Dr. Cruz, it's like 10 to the 46th power of wavelengths coming from the sun. And that just goes to show what you were just saying is like, we have no idea what just being exposed to full spectrum sun does to us, do we?
Yeah, so there's like the individual wavelengths, so 660 nanometers. That's in the red light spectrum. But then there's the combination of wavelengths. And when you do like the permutation of all those different combinations of wavelengths, it's something like an 8 with 36 other numbers after it.
Gosh.
So it's a huge number.
Yeah, it's massive.
Right? And the way the human body works is different frequencies of light penetrate at different depths. So UV light only penetrates to your skin. So we're talking before that, yeah, UV light causes inflammation. It does some damage, but it's on the surface of your skin. Your skin's always regenerating. Blue light goes a little bit deeper. So that gets into your fat. And remember, we have melanopsin in our fat. That's that blue light detector, but it's also creating inflammation in our fat. Red light penetrates very deep. That can penetrate up to 30 centimeters or several inches. It can also penetrate through your skull. And you have all these different kind of like crevices in your brain that are able to reflect and refract these red light frequencies. So your brain, in order to be healthy, it needs these frequencies. And you have two very young twins. I'm sure you felt their head when they were little. They have the soft spot.
Right.
So red light through that soft spot can penetrate even deeper and get to more of the brain. So these developing baby, and when a woman is pregnant, that red light can penetrate to the depth of the fetus. So before, even if a woman was pregnant and she was indoors and she was under incandescent light, that red light from the incandescent light could penetrate through her clothes to the fetus, and it helped with the development.
Wow.
Now, if a woman stays inside all the time and chooses not to go outside, and she's under these energy efficient lights, that developing fetus isn't getting that red light. Those little children that are playing once they're born, those little infants and later toddlers and children, they're playing indoors, they're not getting that red light, even if it's from a fake source that penetrates into the body, and it helps with growth. It helps with regeneration. It helps create melatonin, which is one of the body's top antioxidants. So the implications of this whole green movement are very far reaching, and the risk is from what I can tell so far from the research I've read, far outweighs the reward of saving a few pennies on your electric bill.
Yeah, you were saying before the show that like it'll save someone $400, right, at the end of the year.
Yeah, so I got an infographic from my utility company talking about all these things you can do to save energy. So swapping out all your light bulbs for LED bulbs.
Right.
Getting like a Nest thermostat, which runs on Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So it's a smart thermostat.
Right.
They had some other things in there, like a smart power strip, which that one kind of makes sense to me. But a lot of the energy savings are coming from swapping out light bulbs. And for $400 a year for, let's see, you're going to have bad sleep. You're going to have higher levels of inflammation. You're going to have, over time, become insulin resistant, which means diabetic. It's going to contribute to making you fatter. The blue light, it messes with your metabolism. What are metabolic diseases? Cancer, which is really exploding. Obesity is another metabolic disease. It messes up your hormones. When you have low hormones, you feel like crap. You can't put on muscle. You have poor body composition. You can't think well. So yeah, is $400 worth all that?
Probably
Saving
not.
$400?
I don't think so.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. We have a question here from, speaking of melatonin, and I thought it was interesting. If you guys want to go back and listen to the first show or watch the first show that we did with Nathan, he talked about something that really stuck with me on that show was the ability for the body to create local melatonin, which in my mind has direct impact, or I should say maybe application to specific areas of your body, namely for men, prostate, for women, breast cancer, and things like this. And that kind of leads into this question from Carlin. She wants to know, Nathan, if you suggest sun exposure to eliminate rectal hemorrhoids.
Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't heard of that specific application. I would try it, though. I think it would be worth trying. The other thing you could do is I would do that either earlier in the day or later in the day, because you don't want to get sunburn there to make something painful even more painful.
Right.
So I would focus on sunlight earlier and later in the day when there's less UV. And the other thing I would do is either put an ice pack on it or just sit in some very cold water. I would do those things.
Okay. Is it true? It seems to me that like our bodies are constantly, like you mentioned, the melatonin or the mitochondria thing, constantly sending out frequencies to figure out what kind of environment we're in. Is it cold? Is it harsh? Is it dry? Is it warm? That kind of thing. And it seems to me that like in the same way that you would get two clocks like back in the day and you'd set them, and you come back, 2 years later, those clocks, not only are they going to be off from the actual time, but they're going to be off from each other because they haven't been recalibrated or reset maybe once a year or something. And it's my sort of thinking, and I don't know if this is true, but it makes sense, that every time we go into the sun, we're resetting, we're telling our body and our mitochondria exactly where we are in the earth. So if we get off a little bit, like let's say right now I'm doing an hour and a half show with you, my body's all wonky, but I go in the sun and it immediately resets my mitochondria. Am I correct? That sounds right. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, well, I love the analogy, Justin. So it's not resetting your mitochondria, it's resetting your circadian rhythm.
Okay.
So you have like diurnal animals, which, we're diurnal, we're up during the day, and nocturnal animals. So with diurnal animals, the circadian rhythm is slightly less than 24 hours. So if you're not going outside every day and getting natural sunlight, your circadian rhythm is getting thrown off more and more and more. So yeah, so if you're inside for a period of time, like you are exposed to these things and you're just feeling a little off going outside, that's going to reset your circadian rhythm. And the more times you go outside, the better set it's going to be. So you have your central clock, which we talked about a little at the start of the show, your supracosmatic nucleus.
Mm-hmm.
So that clock controls all the clocks in all your organs. And in fact, you have circadian clocks in every one of your cells. But let's just keep it at a higher level on our organs. So your liver, for example, or your heart, that has a circadian clock in it too. And that's controlled by this clock.
Mm-hmm.
So by going outside more, this clock is set the way it needs to be, which means all your organs clocks are set the way they need to be, and they're running more optimally.
That's interesting. I heard a while back on a podcast. I'm always listening to podcasts and stuff when I'm working out and things. And someone was saying, a German doctor was saying that they have seen tremendous success with something that you would never think would have an impact on someone's health. And they said with people with chronic diseases, they've shown like an 80% response rate with people who simply move the head of their bed away from the wall that it's currently at, 4 feet or more. And he was talking about EMF and dirty electricity in the walls. But when you're talking about, to me, so if they're able to see a response rate of 80% from people just doing something so simple like that, what if we actually slept outside or spent more time outside? I mean, that's going to have an even bigger response rate, in my opinion, because it's reconnecting our entire body to nature, but then it's also extracting us from these damaging dirty electricity fields and stuff like that in our walls too, right?
Yeah. So another thing, so we're talking kind of, you were mentioning before about your mitochondria being able to detect the environment. So another thing they can detect is the Earth's magnetic field. So the Earth has an electromagnetic field. It's called the Schumann resonance. And the electric portion of that is stronger during the day and weaker at night. And the magnetic portion is weaker during the day and stronger at night.
Uh-huh.
And your mitochondria can also sense that. So that's why grounding is also very healthy. There's a couple of reasons for it. The Earth has a negative charge, and you actually absorb that when you're healthy. You have a negative charge.
Uh-huh.
But your mitochondria can also sense like the levels of the electric and magnetic field from the Earth. And that's another data point for them to help them really operate more optimally. So it's, I'd love to tell everyone, yeah, go out and sleep outside and you're going to be healthier. Fortunately, most of us can't do that. But what you can do is just either get grounding shoes, or just when you do go outside, walk in either bare feet or leather shoes, because you can you're grounded through leather or through like thick wool or cotton socks or something like that. Those are a couple things you can do just to put you a little bit closer to nature and help sync your circadian rhythm even further.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Deeper connection with the Earth, I think, is the answer here for everyone's issues and everyone's sort of health challenges. Vonda says, oh, wait, no, that's talking about chemtrails in the sun. So this one here is, how does Nathan protect against dirty electricity in his home? Does he have any crystal stones like shungite? That's a good question.
I do have some shungite. Here's a little piece right here.
Nice.
I'm not sure how much it does. I've heard from some people that have had like muscle testing done that this is quite effective, and it's super cheap too. But one of the things I do is I turn my circuit breaker off at night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good to help mitigate against dirty electricity. I have some Stetzer filters plugged into my outlets, which Supposedly they help to reduce dirty electricity. Those are the two main things I do. That and just trying to get outside throughout the day too, and grounding and just getting that natural light in my eyes and on my skin too.
Yeah, I think what we have to realize too is that we have to focus on our own health as well, and work on continually the food that we're eating and what area, what environment we're in, because when we go inside of these four walls that we call our homes or our offices, we can't see what's going on. And like you were mentioning, our mitochondria, I've read anywhere from 3 to 10,000 mitochondria per cell, depending on if they're brain or heart cells or things like that. 3,000 different mitochondria per cell, and you have over 100 trillion cells. And these mitochondria, I learned just recently talking to the folks over at the deuterium place, have these nanomotors in them, which create an electric or a magnetic charge, sending out frequencies to figure out. So anytime we're in like these four rooms that we call a home, we can't see it, but man, is this a stress on our system, right? It's got to raise cortisol levels, all this stuff we can't see, but it's just slowly happening to us, right?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, your mitochondria are super sensitive to the environment, and they evolved in one kind of environment. Your mitochondria are billions of years old. So they're actually these ancient bacteria. The Earth is like 4.5 billion years old. And then about 500 million years later, these archaea or bacteria showed up, or prokaryotes and archaea. And our mitochondria are these ancient prokaryotes. So they're very old. So they evolved over billions of years without any of this man-made electric pollution and without any man-made light pollution. And the only EMFs they got were from the sun and from the Schumann resonance. Now, all of a sudden, we have all these new things in our environment. They're very sensitive to it. And what happens when they're exposed to these different things they don't like in the environment is they mutate. And when they mutate, they can't make energy. Now, here's a really amazing thing about your mitochondria is, Justin, like you were saying, you have anywhere from a couple hundred to several thousand mitochondria in your cell. The cell can still perform all of its functions, having almost 70% of the mitochondria being mutated.
Wow.
Okay, so that's why some people, when they get sick, they'll get neurodegeneration because they had a big breakdown of the mitochondria in their brain. But they might have a great heart because the mitochondria in their heart are still very good.
Did you say, Nathan, that 70% of the mitochondria within a cell could be mutated? 70% and the cell could still perform, depending on the person, optimally?
Yeah, that's the threshold, right around 70%.
Interesting. Wow. 70%.
Yeah, but so Justin, here's the other thing. So when your mitochondria, when they break down and don't work, they also create inflammation. So inflammation destroys your mitochondria, and then your mitochondria create inflammation. So it can almost create a very vicious cycle.
Right.
Right. And that's why people need to start to be more aware of these things, because when you get to that point where you have a high amount of your mitochondria breaking down, they start to break down faster, creating more inflammation, and it makes it that much more challenging for you to be able to turn things around. And then you hear, I don't know with 100% certainty, but we seem to have a lot of people that are relatively young that look kind of healthy. All of a sudden they drop dead, like Luke Perry.
Right.
I don't know if you grew up watching 90210. I did. That was like one of my favorite shows when I was younger.
Yeah.
I love Dylan McKay. And 49 years old, the guy drops dead. Another guy, I used to be into the whole rave scene, and Prodigy was a band I followed. The guy, what's his name? Like Keith Flint, I think his name is.
Yeah, he just passed away.
He was like 48, 49 too. He also passed away. And when you start to pay attention to these things, there are a lot of people that look very healthy on the surface that, in their 40s or 50s or even younger. There was, who was it? George Foreman's daughter just committed suicide or something.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
But I don't know if it's just because we're so connected with the media, but to me, it seems we're having a lot more young people die very suddenly at a very young age, far before their time. And that just kind of goes to show, when you get close to that threshold, you can still perform everything you need to do. But as you approach that threshold and you're in a very bad environment, that can happen very rapidly. And it can happen so rapidly that the result is death. And that's your only warning.
Mm-hmm. So Nathan, I'm curious, in your experience, in your research, is the mitochondria primarily affected? Because I know that food and toxicities and chemicals and poisons and things can affect mitochondrial health, and stress as well. Is light and magnetism and these types of dirty electricity and 5G, I mean, are those things the primary cause of the breakdown of mitochondria, and then to a lesser degree food and environmental toxins, do you think? Or do we even know that?
I don't know. I don't even know if we know that. I don't know, like, the percentage that you can attribute. It's impossible to tell. I don't think we have the technology to say, okay, you lost this percentage of mitochondria from eating too many McDonald's French fries. You lost this percentage from the dirty electricity, because every one of us have a different environment. So the EMFs I'm exposed to in my environment are different from everybody else. And the weakest link in my body is different than everybody else. So it's extremely complex. It's very complicated. Mm-hmm. But what we know about EMFs, and when you look at the research, like the NTP study that just came out in like 2017 or 2018, is that they do cause cancer, and they do cause a lot of things. And what you need to be aware of is when they did that study, it was done over a very long time period of over a decade. And when you go back to when they started that study, we were on like 2G and 3G. So we have to keep on increasing our Gs, because the amount of data that we're sending over these networks is increasing almost exponentially. So when you think about when cell phones first came out, we used them to talk and we used them to text. Now we're watching movies, we're doing everything from our phones. It takes a lot more data. So these networks that we have are pushing a whole lot more electrons, a whole lot more of this electricity through them. So let me actually share an analogy that might kind of simplify this. So we were just talking about how the Earth has a Schumann resonance. And that resonance is 7.83 hertz. Now, when you are relaxed, when you're meditating, when you're in a very focused state, your brain is making a whole bunch of alpha waves. They also have a frequency. And do you know what that frequency is?
I think it's the same frequency as the Schumann resonance, right?
Yeah. So your brain can actually literally sync up with the same resonance or frequency as the Earth.
Funny how that is.
How do we do that?
Yeah.
Is it a coincidence, or is it because our mitochondria are very sensitive to our environment, and they can pick that up? They can sync with it. And that's why, I was just at the beach in the ocean. It's very easy to be chill there, because that's another frequency that the brain likes, and it creates alpha waves. So if our brain, and before we had the equipment to figure out that the Earth had a magnetic field, probably some shaman or, spiritual people were aware that the Earth had a magnetic field, but 99.9% of us never would have had a clue that the Earth has a magnetic field, because it's below our level of perception. We can't feel it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So now we have all these different frequencies in the gigahertz. So instead of 7.83 cycles per second, we have Wi-Fi at 2.4 billion cycles per second and higher. So if our mitochondria can detect, the 7.83 hertz, do you think it can detect all these other hertz and gigahertz and megahertz?
Yeah, it makes sense, right? I mean, we're constantly trying to,
and then it has to make sense of that, and that has an energy cost, kind of, making sense of it.
Yeah, oh, most definitely. See if we got any other questions here. Let's see. What supplements does Nathan take personally? Magnesium, MSM, blue-green algae, algae DHA, or something like Weston Price or cod liver oils. A lot of talk these days about those substances. Do you take any supplements yourself, Nathan?
On occasion, my main supplement, I got this from Scott Compton of EMF Warriors, but my main thing is sun supplements. So getting my sun. So, getting healthy sun exposure can do more than any supplement. I do take some supplements. Most of the supplements I take are on the short term. When I fly, I do molecular hydrogen because that's really a good quencher of free radicals, especially a lot of the free radicals made from EMFs. And when you fly, you get exposed to a whole bunch of EMFs. But here's a hack, because molecular hydrogen is not super cheap. And I don't recommend taking it all the time because there could be some deuterium in there. It's hard to say. But your body also makes molecular hydrogen. And the best way to do that is by getting infrared light on your gut. So that light, it penetrates into your gut, and your bacteria are able to liberate or pull out molecular hydrogen from your food.
Interesting. Okay.
So another supplement I take is I'm bigger on herbs. So when I cook, I use turmeric as much as I can. And if I have like some soreness or inflammation, I'll supplement with some curcumin.
Mm-hmm.
I also do some, and what I take is going to be different than everybody else. I take things for very specific reasons. I'm not just like, popping supplements left and right because I think it makes me healthier.
Right.
I supplement some creatine as well because that's good for to put on muscle. And I'm a little bit vain, so I do want to help kind of augment my muscle growth. So creatine is something that I do. When I drink my water, I often squeeze either fresh lemon or lime in there for my vitamin C supplement. Because here's the thing with vitamin C, you can only handle so much vitamin C at a time. And that's why lots of people, when they take a vitamin C supplement, they're running to the bathroom. Right. Because their body's getting rid of what you can't use.
Right.
So I'm just kind of slowly taking mine throughout the day. I will supplement with Celtic sea salt. So in the morning, I'll do either like a quarter or a half teaspoon, just in some water and chug it down. And I'll just do some kind of periodically in my water as well. But that's about it. I will do some different herbs. Sometimes I'll do some maca or some ginseng or like I just got like a packet of some dried like reishi mushroom that I'll like put in my coffee or something.
Yeah.
Those are the main.
I like those too. I like doing things like that. They're more superfood powders or maybe some mushrooms or something like that. That's what I like doing too, more than just taking pills. Speaking of supplements, what are your thoughts? We get this question a lot, and I no longer take vitamin D3 or melatonin exogenously. What are your thoughts about taking those things in pill form? Do you think they really screw up our circadian rhythms?
So back to supplements, I'll take vitamin D in the wintertime if I feel like I'm getting sick.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only time I take it.
Yeah.
I never take melatonin. We do have research now that shows that melatonin, prolonged use, thins your retina. It also can desensitize you to melatonin, and over time, your body stops making it naturally.
Right.
And now remember, so back to melatonin, there's two ways to make it. Getting that morning sun. So once UVA comes out, that's how I make melatonin. Goes in my eye, it interacts with tryptophan, which is an amino acid. That makes melatonin. It also makes it also makes serotonin. When UVA light interacts with tyrosine, it makes dopamine and melanin. Now, the other way to make melatonin, so remember, we have the circulatory melatonin, which comes into play at night,
Uh-huh.
and subcellular melatonin, which you make from near infrared light.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the way you want to make melatonin. And that's why throughout the show, Justin and I keep on saying, got to get outside, you got to get outside, got to get outside.
Right.
But even just using like a red light, or like the red near infrared spotlights,
Right.
that's another way that you can make melatonin. And
Mm-hmm.
my significant other was observing one day, like our son Jay fell asleep, took three naps during the day at the beach, and he never does that. And the
Wow.
reason is because he was playing outside and his body was making all this melatonin, and it was
Wow.
helping him sleep. And if you ever chill out at the sleep all day, chill out at the beach or by the pool all day, lots of times you'll feel sleepy. And some people are like, oh, sun's not good for you, it makes you tired. No, you're making a whole lot of melatonin, and your body is sleeping because it needs to do some repair and regeneration.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You know, I feel like there are things that happen in our natural health world for a reason. And it's funny because, like, I was just reading a post today on Facebook, and the person was saying how eating meat is causing cancers and all this kind of thing. And I responded and I said, it's interesting that, like, one of our former guests, Agenus Vonderplanets, whom I'm sure you're familiar with, he was the proponent behind.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, he ate a primal diet, which he cured his cancer eating raw organ meat. And sometimes he would even ferment those raw organ meats, and he would call it high meat. And it just reeked, apparently, in his refrigerator.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and so there's all these things that happen as a result of, like, we have these broad statements that we say this, that, or the other about a certain thing, right? And it's interesting with the melatonin thing, because I was listening to a podcast the other day where this guy was talking about this clinic that is using high dose IV melatonin to reduce cancers and tumors in people, and he was saying that they would be taking, I think, 1,500 milligrams or some crazy amount in an IV bag, and was having these incredible rates or successes with cancers. And I just thought, like, it's interesting that we have these ideas about things, but then what do you make of stories like that? But like you said, to what you were saying, maybe melatonin on an ongoing basis is thinning the retinas and not good for us because it breaks down our body's ability to create melatonin ourselves. But in an acute situation, it could have tremendous impact, right?
Yeah, if I was on death's doorstep and I had cancer, I think I'd do IV melatonin before I do chemotherapy.
Right.
There are exceptions to everything, but for the average person that's just like, my health is okay, I want to make it better, should you take melatonin? I don't think you should, based on what I've read. I think you should get outside and make more of your own melatonin.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious too, your thoughts about this. Is it melatonin? So we create the melatonin, let's say the first way that you're talking about, from UVA, from the sun in the morning, and then it creates melatonin in our body, and then the melatonin is there, and then do we deplete that melatonin that we just created by going indoors and being under blue light, and that's what depletes the melatonin? So that's why part of the reason why we have a hard time falling asleep is because maybe we created it, but then we depleted it and got rid of it through blue light exposure. Is that accurate, do you think?
Yeah, well, so the main thing with being exposed to blue light at night is your body thinks it's day, so you don't get that circulatory release of melatonin.
Oh, okay.
Now here's the other thing. Remember, melatonin is an antioxidant, so it's cleaning up all the damage, all these free radicals. Mm-hmm. It's scavenging these radicals. So you're under blue light. So historically, we worked outside. We're getting some free radical damage from UV, from the sun, but then the red light is making melatonin, cleaning up that damage.
Uh-huh.
Okay? Then we moved into office buildings. We're working under blue light all day, so we're getting all that free radical damage from the blue light. And now we don't have any of the red light to create melatonin to clean up that damage.
Interesting.
So what little melatonin you have, it's being used up to clean up all that inflammation, to clean up the free radical damage.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
So now, and it's like, oh, go on.
No, no, I was just going to say, so that's why it's so important for all of us to protect our eyes, right? At night and even during the day, right?
Yeah, so the main reason we want to protect our eyes is because that's like the gateway to our supracosmatic nucleus or circadian clock. And plus, I mean, your eye has a very high concentration of photoreceptors, and blue light causes inflammation. It destroys those photoreceptors. So it's causing, more and more people are having eye problems, like uveal melanoma is exploding, like cancer of the eye.
Uh-huh.
AMD, which is age-related macular degeneration, is the number one cause of blindness.
Mm-hmm. Myopia,
so
glaucoma.
More and more people are getting that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, glaucoma. A lot more children are having myopia.
Uh-huh.
And myopia is just kind of the first step. And it's, this is, I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of generations, but have you heard of like Pottinger's cats?
I have. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So in 3 generations from cats eating like really bad diets,
Mm-hmm.
each subsequent generation got worse and worse. And by the 3rd generation, they couldn't even procreate anymore. So we've already kind of gone down that road with our food becoming industrialized and GMOs and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But really, this is kind of like our first generation that was born and has grown up under this lighting situation and the EMFs.
Mm-hmm.
And infertility has already exploded. It's super, super high. And it's almost like the more developed the country, the higher the infertility rates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
So, yeah. So in 3 generations, are we even going to be? I mean, what's the infertility rate going to be like then?
Yeah, it's huge. It's growing now, and people are having such a difficult time having children, and it shouldn't be the case. Do you think, Nathan, that even though there are these things that people call chemtrails and mercury or environmental toxins. We had Stephanie Seneff on the show a while back talking about glyphosates, and 10% of fuel comes from ethanol, which is derived from corn, which is sprayed with glyphosate. And so she's surmising now that we're breathing glyphosate in our air, and all these environmental toxins. And it's almost like you become so scared to go outside. But I would surmise that even though those toxins are there, the air inside your home is still going to be way more toxic. There's going to be more dirty electricity and more issues with light and everything else. So even though it's, I guess, toxic outside, it's still 100 times better to be outside than it would be inside, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no perfect health solution in the world we live in. Everything has a risk reward.
Yeah.
The main way your body detoxifies itself in order to fully detoxify is you need to have healthy mitochondria. One of the healthiest things for your mitochondria is going outside, grounding, and getting healthy sunlight exposure. So if you're going to, if you think your solution is, well, there's chemtrails outside, there's a shitload of glyphosate, there's all these other industrial chemicals, so I'm not going to go outside so I don't breathe them in and I'm going to be healthier.
Yeah.
Well, where do you think the air in your home comes from? It comes from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So now, your best thing that's going to help you mitigate those things, now you've escaped that too, and you don't have any money because you're spending all your money on healthcare. So you want to save all you can. So you get rid of your incandescent bulbs, and you put in energy-efficient light bulbs. So you took away the last of your last salvation of that infrared light that you were getting from your infrared light bulbs.
Right, right.
So, yeah. So
you still got to get outside.
You got to get outside. There's no way around it. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Another question here from the chat room, and I've often wondered this too, with regards to what Dr. Cruz says about the difference between DHA from fish oils versus from actual fish or ocean food, and he always says it has to be in the SN2 position, and the reason why algae-based DHA oils don't work is because they're in the SN1 and SN3 positions, and apparently your body can only uptake the SN2 positions. I mean, to me, these are just, I I haven't seen the studies. I don't know if this works, in this case with all humans across the world. Have you looked at this stuff at all?
Yeah. Well, the reason you want your DHA in the SN2 position is because it has a different molecular structure, and in the SN2 position, it's paramagnetic, which means that it's drawn to magnetic fields. And what were we talking about before with the mitochondria? What do your mitochondria make?
Magnetic fields.
It's an engine, right?
Yeah.
When you were talking with, did you say you had a talk with Boros?
Yeah. Over those guys over there, they're talking about the magnetic field that your mitochondria makes. It's fascinating.
Yeah, the ATPase is the nanomotor. So it turns. It makes a magnetic field. And that magnetic field attracts paramagnetic things. One is DHA in the SN2 position. That gets it in the cell. What else is paramagnetic? Oxygen.
Oh, okay.
Now, here's the other thing, Justin. When you eat fish, you get fish oil, but you get all these other nutrients.
Right.
When you eat fish oil, it's extracted somehow. Maybe in some fish oils might have good extraction methods. Some might not. They're also extracted probably in a building with what kind of light? Probably fake blue light. So that's altering it too. Now, the other thing is these algae fish oils have something very high. Is it aldehydes? I forget exactly what it's either an aldehyde or it's something that sounds kind of like that.
Okay.
But these are very inflammatory.
Interesting.
So when you talk about fish, there's a risk reward. The reward is higher than the risk. Yeah, our oceans are polluted. There's some risk. There's some contaminants. But you're getting more benefit from eating that fish because you're getting the DHA. You're getting a whole bunch of nutrients that are perfect for your brain to maintain a healthy brain. You want to avoid things like tuna, swordfish, the predator fish, because the longer the fish lives, the more toxins it accumulates. So stick with smaller fish. Ideally, in the ocean, cold water fish, they're going to be higher in DHA and all the other nutrients. Now, fish oil, you're getting the DHA, but you're not getting a lot of these other nutrients. Plus, you're getting these compounds that have been made that cause inflammation. So you just flipped the risk reward from having a higher reward and a lower risk to having a lower reward and higher risk.
Yeah, it's
and there are some. There's a good podcast. There was a guy, Bart K, and he actually did an interview with Jack Cruz. Bart K is he's a bio something researcher. He does a lot of research. Really smart guy.
Yeah.
But he has a podcast where it's either with Jack Cruz or it's another one he did, where he has a laboratory and he tested all these fish oils. And the worst ones were the algae fish oils, but pretty much every fish oil had pretty high levels of this inflammatory compound.
That's interesting. I have watched that interview. Now that I bring it up, I'll put a link to it on the description if those of you that want to check that out. I'm wondering if we know that, does all, if someone say, oh, eating seafood is bad. Well, it depends what seafood you're eating, right? Can we say that all DHA in seafood is in the SN2 position, or does it depend on what food you're eating? I wonder.
Yeah, from my understanding, it is. So when we eat, humans can we can eat DHA that's not in the SN2, and we can convert from SN1 or SN3 to SN2, but it's a very small amount. I
see.
Now, fish are very good at eating algae and converting that SN1 to SN2 or SN3 to SN2. Oh. It's just how they're built.
That's so interesting. Okay.
I haven't seen any research that says, okay, this fish, has less SN2 DHA than this fish. But different fish do have different levels of DHA, and the fattier the fish, the more of the DHA.
That would make sense.
So things like salmon, sardines, anchovies, shellfish. Not all shellfish, but any kind of fatty fish, like black cod or sable fish, they're all very high DHA fish because they're all very fatty.
Super interesting. Going back to blue light, is one of the most damaging effects of blue light the fact that it's super high frequency, do you think? Or is it the actual color blue that's no good?
It's the frequency. So it's a high energy visible light.
Mm-hmm.
So it has it's actually a lower frequency. It's high energy.
Oh, okay.
So the lower the frequency, the higher the energy.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that's what's causing issues with us. It's destroying our melatonin, our eyes, our hormones, everything, right?
It destroys our melatonin. It causes inflammation. And when you have inflammation, what happens to your mitochondria? They don't work so well, right? When they don't work so well, you make less energy. Now, when you get blue light from the sun, it's good, but you're getting a very small percentage of the sun is blue light. It's like, I forget the percentage, but like 70% of the sun is infrared light.
Wow.
So you have like way more of this infrared that's repairing all the damage, all the harm from the blue light from sunlight, and even from like a halogen or an incandescent light bulb. But when you're getting blue light from like the screen, from your phone, from an energy efficient light bulb, it's almost all blue and hardly any of the other light. So you're getting like this much inflammation and no repair, as opposed to from the sun, you get this much inflammation, but this much repair.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I would probably guess too that if you were to isolate the blue coming from the sun and the blue coming from your screen, even if you just peeled away everything else and all the other frequencies that are there and just analyze those two aspects of blue together, they're going to be way different. Just because one's artificial, one's fake, and one's coming from nature.
Yeah, so the blue light coming from our screen, it peaks at like 455 nanometers. Whereas when you get it from the sun, so if you look at like the spectrum of light from your screen, you look at the blue, it kind of goes up like this and down.
Right.
Which is probably kind of hard to follow with my finger. But if you look at the blue from the sun, it kind of goes across, because it's an even mix of all these different nanometers of blue from like 400 to 500 nanometers. Whereas from an artificial source, it's a very small subsection of that whole.
I see. Someone in the chat room said something pretty funny. They said, I was just reading it, they should have an age restriction on blue light, spaceman. That's so true, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I could not agree with that more, because it's far more harming to developing children than it is to adults. Like your human brain doesn't fully develop till you're 25 years old.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so that's, we were saying before, this is the first generation that was born into this. So from the moment they were born, they've been exposed to pretty much nothing but blue light. And blue light, it doesn't penetrate that deep, but the smaller you are, the closer your organs are to the surface. So you've got this blue light. For us, it can't reach most of our organs except for our eyes and our thyroid. But for small children, there's much less space. So it's penetrating to their heart, to their kidneys, their liver, probably their brain.
Right.
And, we'll continue to see what happens in the coming years, but from how it's been, it's not going to be good. It's going to be worse.
We have one of those little Juve red light therapy things, and I wonder if it would be a good idea to put our kids in front of that. Maybe turn their back to it so they're not looking right at the LEDs, but that might be kind of cool. We take them outside as much as we possibly can too, but through the winter, it's been a little bit rough. And at 8 months old, I bet they could do okay with that, right?
Yeah, I would have like a little more distance, because that's going to be kind of less intensity of the light. Yeah, especially if you go through a stretch where it's just miserable weather and you can't get them outside. Yeah, I'd get them on their skin for sure.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue too. I think one of the major issues with schools and kids, and putting on these laptops and getting these computers in classrooms and stuff. It's absolutely crazy. And like with our kids at 8 months old, I mean, when we have our phones near them, we have the red software installed on them, and so they're not emitting any blue. But man, their eyes just track. Like their eyes just captivated to that screen. And it's like, man, oh man, what is it? There's something spooky going on with that, you know?
Yeah, I don't let my son watch a lot of shows, but sometimes, you know, you just have to do it. You know what it's like having young children,
Yeah.
and he's completely mesmerized by it. It alters his personality. I'll share this real quick story. Our first day on the beach, he met there was this little boy next to us who, my son's almost 3, this little boy, he was 5 or 6.
Okay.
And my son's very social. He was looking at the other kid and just like, go say hi to him. So he just walked over, and the other little boy was super nice, and they're playing together. And then his cousin came over. She was this little girl. She was like 7 or so.
Uh-huh.
They're all playing together. And then we decided to go up to the pool area. We're hanging out by the pool. And these kids tagged along. They were playing at the pool. Then they're like, okay, we're going back down to the beach to our mom. So all of a sudden, you know, they left, and my son Jay, he got upset. He's like, I want to see my friends. I want to see my. He started crying. So I'm like, you know, they probably just let him hang out for a little bit. We'll go down a little bit later. We'll say hi.
Right.
So like a half hour goes by, and Jay's like, I want to see my friends. So I take him down. Both these kids are on the lawn chair. They're on their phones playing games.
Wow.
Jay goes up to say hi to him, and the kid wanted nothing to do with him. It was like he had never ever seen Jay before in his life.
My goodness.
And you know, when they don't have these devices, kids and humans we're very naturally social. We enjoy human interactions, but we get around these devices, and it's like you said, it draws in, it sucks in all of your attention. And it's altering your hormones and your neurotransmitters. It's altering the way your brain works. It might sound kind of crazy, but start to observe these things. Start to observe your children, how they are outside versus when they're inside playing on a computer or playing on your phone or iPad or whatever. And just pay attention to this stuff. And if just being on there for like 5-10 minutes alters their personality, what is it going to do with them being on there hours, day after day after day?
Right. I know. Because it's doing something to obviously their physiology, but man, it's altering people's personalities as well. Okay. We got a couple questions here that I think are pretty, let's say, actionable here. Haji says here, Justin, can you ask your guest, how can we protect ourselves from all of these electronic screens in front of us? So they want to know some mitigation strategies. And we kind of touched a little bit on them, but I'm sure there's some things we missed, right?
Yeah, so Iris, there's a free application called FLux. There's a paid application called Iris. And Justin, I don't know if you know Daniel, I forget his last name, but the guy that developed Iris, he's a really cool guy.
Yeah, I've communicated with him a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
But so I would install that on all of your computer screens. For your phone, so for iPhone, there's Night Shift. For Android, I believe the newer Android phones install something similar to a Night Shift where you can reduce the blue.
Uh-huh.
Let me get my phone real quick. Where is it?
Yeah.
But if not, there's an Android application that's called Twilight. Now, the other thing you can do is, like on an iPhone, you can go in and you can change it to all red. So Night Shift, it doesn't reduce all the blue. It reduces some of it. So at night, if you're on your phone and you have Night Shift on, you're still getting blue light. It's still altering your melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
This makes it so it's all red.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you can do for your computer screen or for your phone screen. I'm not aware of much you can do for like your TV. I do know some people that purchase like an orange film and they put it over their TV screen. What I do is I wear blue blocking glasses. So these are Raw Optics new blue blockers. They have blue tech lenses,
nice,
which has like a pigment in the lens. So they're not blue light blockers. They're blue light filtering glasses. So this kind of filters out blue light. So during the day, these are good because it doesn't alter your color perception. But then at night, and my son, when he watches TV, he wears orange blue blocking glasses.
Oh, okay. What brand do you give your son?
He has a pair. They're called like Eye Kuiper or Keeper. They're from Amazon. They're pretty cheap. I did get him a pair of Raw Optics, but they're a little bit too big for him right now.
Okay.
He's also a toddler, so he's pretty destructive at this age.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Raw Optics and Blue Blocks are another brand I like for blue blockers. They're not the cheapest. They're good quality, but they're not cheap. So for my son, I didn't necessarily want to spend like $100 or 80 or however much they are on glasses, only to have him like destroy them in a month.
Right.
So if he's Eye Kepper or Keeper from Amazon, they're like $30.
Okay.
And I'm sure the lens quality isn't the same as some of the other ones, but they do the job. And the other thing you want to do at night is cover up your skin too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just, there are some things you can do for your screens, less you can do for like a TV screen. So in that case, wear protective eyewear and cover up your skin.
Yeah, you know what? We did an interview years ago with the guy, Dr. Richard Hansler, I think his name is. And let me see if I can bring his website up. You're probably familiar with him, Nathan, but he runs a website called lowbluelights.com. And we have some of his filters. We have some of his filters that you can put on your phone, like a physical sort of thing that you can put on your phone. The glasses there aren't very like stylish, but if you're at home by yourself, no big deal. But they might have some filters that you can put over your TV as well. So lowbluelights.com might be something to look at.
Yeah. I purchased some things from those guys. It's I wish they'd update their website and make it more modern, but they do have a lot of really good products.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I like the glasses too, and the glasses are huge, I think, because for me, I'm an advocate of buying multiple things. Like people will say, "Oh, which sauna is the best?" or "Which pair of eyeglasses are the best?" And for me, I buy all of them. I buy all the glasses, and there's 3 companies we recommend, and Raw Optics and Blue Blocks are one of them. I know you recommend both those as well, and getting different ones. Like we have some that we set, like the really cheap ones from Amazon, that I have in our kitchen, or I have right before you go into the garage where we have those fluorescent lights, and I'll just throw those on for like 30 seconds while I'm in the garage, kind of a thing. And so it's good to have them in different areas, like your car. Someone was asking about driving with headlights. That's a real issue. So if it's like dusk and 5, 6 o'clock, I wear them during driving. You got to have them everywhere, I think, right?
It's a great question. So for driving short distances at night, I'll wear like my orange blue blockers, but for longer distance, I feel a little unsafe driving like that.
Yeah.
Not from falling asleep, but just because I can see so much less.
Oh, right.
So sometimes I'll sacrifice my eyes just because to avoid getting in an accident. But yeah, headlights today are horrible. A lot of them are LEDs. So before they used to be incandescent headlights where you were getting a little blue, but most of the spectrum of light was more red. So it wasn't doing as more harm. Today you have like these xenon, like super bright ones and LEDs. And so there are more and more sources. Also like street lamps used to be high pressure sodium. Now they're LED. Mm-hmm. Now another mitigation strategy I do at night is I wear a baseball cap as well. Because with these glasses on, there's ambient light coming in from the sides, from the top, but the way your eye works, the only light you really need to worry about is the light coming in from the top. So in wearing a baseball cap, you're covering that up.
Interesting.
But just back to what you said, if you're kind of like on the fence with like, I don't know about this blue blocking thing. Yeah, start off with just some like $10 UVEX ones from Amazon, and just wear them at home for a couple weeks. So, you don't have to be worried about people making fun of you, but just see what that does for your sleep and just for how you feel in general. And most people are very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, let's do one final question because we could go on forever. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about, but one person was looking for cheaper daytime glasses in the yellow range. Do you need a special lens to block or filter blue, or any tinted would be sufficient. Any cheaper brands for daytime? UVX only has orange. Yeah, I don't know about yellow. Do you, for cheaper brands?
Yeah, I have some yellow raw optics ones, but I'm sure if you go on Amazon, or even if you go to like Home Depot or Lowe's, some of the safety glasses are yellow.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have the ones from Blue Blocks, and I have the yellow ones from True Dark, but I don't have any other cheaper yellow ones. But yellow, daytime for me, if I'm at home, it's not much of an issue because I just turn off all the lights and I have iris running and things like that. But if I were working in an office, that would be a big deal for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Nathan, we covered a ton. We were supposed to only go for an hour, but we went for an hour and 50 minutes, man. Then we could go on forever.
Tell you, man, time flies hanging out with you, Justin.
Oh man, this was so great. That's really cool learning about the melatonin stuff that you were just mentioning, because on the first show that you did, when you talked about creating local melatonin, that was huge for me in the application of women for their breasts or guys for their family jewels or prostate issues or anything like that. So it's awesome. You're always learning and reading and getting into new stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, well, Justin, thanks so much. It was, like I said, great honor, great pleasure to be on your show. Keep up your awesome work. Keep spreading the good word. And I just want to say this one thing. I think one of the most challenging things today about your health is distinguishing reality or the real thing from the BS, because there's so much information out there and most of it is utter BS. But the good news is we all have the ability to go out and do our own research. So don't just take, my word for this. Don't take Justin's word for it. Go out and do the research, because there's a lot of research backing these things up. And make sure you're taking recommendations from people that are giving you advice based on research and not just based on like old dogma that has been regurgitated for the past 10, 15, 20 years.
Right. Yeah, good word. And Nathan, I was saying before, I think at the beginning of the break, that you work with people, and that's part of what you do, right? So you have coaching programs and things like that for people. So tell people a little bit about that before we leave, because I want people to know that you do that.
Yeah, well, Justin, thanks. But yeah, I help my clients create a lifestyle that gives them the energy and drive they need to succeed in life. So the way I do that is I work with clients over the course of 90 days, and I give them coaching, accountability, and guided support through 4 key elements that make up what I call my optimal health protocol. So element number 1 is helping you with your self-image. And a lot of us have these beliefs that are hurting us. So if we're little, somebody tells us you're stupid, or you're never going to amount to anything, that becomes a belief, and it guides our daily actions and decisions. So in self-image design, I help you create beliefs aligned with the person you want to be, setting you up for long-term success. So element number 2 is energy optimization. It's all about helping you to fix and repair your mitochondria, so you're making a lot of energy. So just really helping you fine-tune your diet, your movement, your breathing, and also finding things in your environment that are robbing you of energy. Element number 3 is brain optimization, and helping you have a healthy gut, because the brain and gut are connected. If you have leaky gut, at some point you're going to have some challenges with your brain. So teaching you what you need to do to, in the short term, have a very focused, fine-tuned brain that works well, and in the long term, avoid neurodegeneration and other brain disease. And then number 4 is lifestyle integration, and just teaching you the daily actions that you need to do so you live a life that gives you this flourishing, abundant health, not just in the short term, but for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's cool too that I love supporting your work and letting people know about what you're doing, because it's a lot of people, like we mentioned before, focus only on one thing, and you're focused on the health, the diet, the light, the personal growth. I mean, it's all tied together, because if we have all the right information, what's going to be the thing that causes someone to make a right decision in the moment? Well, that's going to be your ability and your desire to have some sort of self-love and to make a decision that's saying, hey, I'm worth it. And so if that's not there, you can have all the information you want, but if you don't have the discipline and the self-worth to make that choice in the moment, then you're not going to do whatever it is you know is right. So that's why I like supporting your work, because it seems like you cover all the angles of it.
Yeah, well, that was so awesomely put, Justin. And hey, well, thanks so much, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nathan. We'll talk soon, all right?
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. There you go, guys. Nathan Walz. Check out his website, journeytooptimalhealth.com. Super, super cool guy. That is why we do what we do, my friends. There are so many people dying needlessly of modern metabolic diseases that don't need to be dying. And I don't know about you guys, but you read the stats and you talk to people and you learn about guys like Luke Perry, or these people that are living toxic lifestyles, and something we're doing is not working. And so this is why it's really important for all of us to reconnect with nature, to completely get back to everything that we're supposed to be doing, that carries with us in our lineage, in our ancestry. And so this is why it's super important to reconnect with nature. Talking about reconnecting with nature, let me play this little clip here. This is really, really cool. This is about our far infrared sauna. And a lot of people ask us, like, hey, what product is your favorite product in our store? And I have to tell you guys, it's the far infrared sauna. This thing emits far infrared frequency. It is so, so cool. Oh my gosh, I just love this thing so much. And here we have a little clip from our good friend Ken Pressner talking about the far infrared sauna.
Also saunas, which I was listening to in the break. I'm a great believer in saunas. In fact, I take a sauna myself nearly every day. They're tremendously effective for detoxifying metals and other toxins from the body. But if you have mercury in your mouth, what you may be doing is, instead of taking the mercury out of your tissues and out through the pores into the sweat, what you may be doing is you may be taking the mercury from your fillings and redistributing it to areas in the body which you don't want to have that mercury arrive at, the brain, the kidneys, and other areas of the body. So you should be careful with detoxification. Detoxification must be done, as I write about in my recovery protocol, in a safe manner. And if you do things safely, and if you follow things closely, the way I write about it in my book, stressing slow and steady, step by step, and doing things safely, then you should have no problem.
Yes, my friends. Sauna therapy, there are so many studies showing that if you sit in a sauna 4 to 7 times per week, you reduce your risk, I should say, of all-cause mortality by 40%, which is just crazy. How do they know that? Right? 40% decrease in all-cause mortality, because one of the things it's doing is improving your immune system by increasing heat shock proteins. And heat shock proteins are a huge part, an arm of your immune system that helps to clear out and to defend against these viruses and pathogens and things that we're exposed to. The other great thing that it does too is it oscillates your fat cells. So these toxins that we're exposed to, chemicals, poisons, environmental perfumes, and all these things. I was reading something recently, 60,000 new chemicals introduced into our environment since the early 1960s. That's 60,000 new chemicals. God only knows how many existing chemicals there were. Plus, that's not counting the chemicals in the food. And so how do we get these things out of our body? Sweating is one of the best things that we can do, because it helps to oscillate the fat cells, which is where a lot of these things store themselves, in the fat cells, these toxins and chemicals. And so I highly recommend this thing. I do it about 5 days a week now, and it's just a tremendous way to detox your body, increase your immune system. It's amazing, guys, and I'm telling you, it's really, really cool. Here's a picture of Kate, if you're watching on YouTube, sitting out, and her head is out of the sauna, which is cool because then you can watch Netflix or you can watch a documentary, you can learn and read, or you can do anything you want with your head sitting out, which from an Ayurvedic perspective is more optimal too. So I can't recommend this thing highly enough. I use it, like I said, almost daily, and it's been a huge part of my life for about the last probably 6-7 years. And I can't even imagine how many gallons of sweat I've sweat out of my body as a result of using this. So if you guys are interested, check that out, the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. And then finally, I wanted to tell you guys about the Magnetico mattress pad. We did a little show recently with Dr. William Pollack, and he talked about magnetism, and it was really interesting. Check out what he had to say about it.
The body, and for the body.
Okay.
All the activity of the body, all those biochemical processes rely on the natural electromagnetic fields and electrical fields within the body itself.
Okay.
Magnetic fields drive chemical reactions.
Okay.
Chemical reactions interact with magnetic fields, so they go back and forth.
Okay.
Again, it's very dynamic. But because the magnetic field doesn't stay in the body doesn't have to process a magnetic field the way it processes a chemical or a food.
Okay.
Okay, and it's going all the way through. And as it goes through, it does a bunch of different things. And in the book, I actually have about 25 different mechanisms that I describe about how magnetic fields actually work in the body.
Interesting. Okay.
But the primary mechanism we believe that's happening is that you're generating charge, you're generating energy, the production of energy in the tissues. And remember I said electric currents and magnetic fields in the body itself drive and move all sorts of processes continually.
Okay.
And when you have disease, when you have illness, when things are not functioning as well as you want, and including aging, the slowing down of activity in the body, that is due to a decreasing energy production processes in the body. That's what aging is. It's the reduction of energy in the body.
Yes, my friends, and it's one of the big things that we like to do is sleep in a magnetic mattress pad. So Magnetico creates this mattress pad that you can put on your bed, and it's really cool. And what it does is it bathes your body in a 10 Gauss, either a 5, a 10, or 20 Gauss magnetic field. And this has a tremendous impact on the electrons in your body's ability to create that magnetic field coming from your mitochondria and those nanomotors that are there, that 3,000 to 10,000 different mitochondria in your body helps to increase the spin of the electrons in the body. It helps to detoxify the body, helps to protect, we like it, for 5G and bathing yourself in a magnetic field. And this is a cool little hack that you can do, is put this thing on your bed. There's like 1,200 magnets on this thing, and it weighs like, I think, 75 pounds. It's crazy heavy. But you put it on your bed and you sleep on it, and it's just, you can learn all about it. We did a whole show with Dr. Dean Bonley all about what this does to the electrons in your body and how it affects cellular health, because essentially we are magnetic beings and electric beings long before we're physical beings. So I just love this thing. Our kids have been sleeping on it. Our kids sleep like 12 hours a night. They started sleeping on this. Let's see. They started sleeping on this early on. I think Kate was like 6-7 months pregnant when she first got it, and they've been sleeping like crazy amazing ever since we've had ours. And so it's a tremendous mitigation strategy for 5G and for increasing your cellular health and your magnetic health as well. So what Dr. Cruz talks a lot about is light, water, magnetism. And today we talked a lot about light, but this is a way to bring more magnetism into your life. And the Magnetico mattress sleep pad, in my opinion, is just indispensable. The cool thing is that they are allowing you guys to get a 10% discount. So if you enter the code EHR10, like Extreme Health Radio 10, you'll get 10% off your order. So I highly recommend getting one of these things, saving up for one, getting one, and utilizing it. Because, I like to mitigate the areas of my life that are the areas where I spend the most time, like areas where I work, areas where I sleep. These types of things are really important to make sure that are optimized for your health. Because if you're going to spend 8 hours doing something that's damaging your health, and then another 8 hours that's good for your health, then you're kind of canceling each other out, right? So if you can optimize your workspace, your home environment, and your sleep environment, then you've done a lot there to really improve your chances of your body working correctly. So I hope you guys enjoyed that show. If you guys are listening on the podcast, we'll have everything available at extremehealthradio.com/665, and we'll put links to the cell phone, the NTP study that he talked about, that study or that interview Dr. Cruz did with Bart about the SN1 and DHA, SN2 position. We'll have the iris, the blue blocking glasses, all that cool stuff available at extremehealthradio.com/665. Let me see what you guys are chit-chatting about. You guys are all so cool in the chat room. Yeah, Haji says, thank you, Justin. Thanks a million for all your care. I will become a customer of your store very soon, God willing. Well, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And I think somebody mentioned earlier that they're going to pick up the aloe vera that we sell. It's best to buy or to grow your own aloe vera. That's the best. But if you can't, if you go to your health food store and look at that aloe vera, man, there's going to be so many excipients, so many chemical tag-alongs, so many other weird ingredients. The Stockton Aloe one just has the raw, unfiltered, unprocessed, unheated aloe vera straight into your little gut tube. So hope you guys enjoyed that show. Thank you, Justin. My favorite episode so far in your long history. Thank you so much for asking so many of my questions. Bigger fan than ever today. Awesome. Thanks, Big Fat Mama. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. We do our best. This is one of the things that we like to bring to the table, and that is that health is a holistic pursuit, and it's a pursuit that never ends. And so the biggest thing that sort of bothers me in today's natural health community is that we're focusing all of our attention on food, and we're not talking about spirituality. We're not talking about personal development. We're not talking about light. We're not talking about magnetism. We're not talking about water. We're talking just about food and supplements, and people trying to sell you food and supplements when the ultimate hack is like what Nathan was saying. I like this, what he said, sunplements, getting outside. It's super, super important. If there are 1,500 different frequencies of the sun and 10 to the 46 power wavelengths of the sun, what Nathan was saying was so true. There are aspects to getting outside, whether it's the magnetic field of the earth coming up from the earth by being grounded, or the Schumann resonance, which is the magnetic field that exists between the crust of the earth and the ionosphere, or the 1,500 different frequencies and wavelengths of the sun combined with the fresh air. I mean, this is where we were designed to live. And when we're living indoors, we're radically damaging our health. So we have to understand that. You know what I mean? So for example, for me, if I'm doing this show, I'm damaging my health right now. I'm creating all kinds of inflammation in my body right now. And so what do I have to do to mitigate that? So part of my strategy is spending more and more time outside. But it's like we were saying earlier with Dr. Cruz, he has such a high standard that sometimes he won't even do an interview indoors anymore. And he just will not compromise on that. The only difference is that he makes his money, his career is neurosurgery. He's a brain surgeon. So that would be like saying to him, hey, Dr. Cruz, you can't do any surgery unless it's under red light, or you can't do any surgery unless you completely turn off all the lights or the electricity and all that kind of thing. He wouldn't do that because this is where his income comes from. So I wish that I could have that same sort of commitment and ability to do that with this show, but there are things that you can do. So if you're going to work inside or next to a computer all day, there are so many things you can do to mitigate. One of the things I like to do is I have this Blue Shield EMF protection device, and if you guys are interested in this, we have this in our store as well. We did a whole show with Brandon Amalani about how this puts out specific micro pulses of energy in a scalar format that helps mitigate EMF. But there are so many things that you can do to help protect yourself, and the biggest thing you can do is getting outside, simply getting outside, spending as much time as you can outside, expose your food to the sun, because that has an impact as well. So there's so many things you can do, and I just want you to know that it's not all about food, but also if you're in the light world, if you're listening to all the light gurus out there, it's not only about light either. There's so many aspects to our health, and I think it's really important that what trumps all of these things is our spiritual growth, our connectedness to ourselves, our connectedness to each other, our mission, our connectedness to our mission, our family ancestry. I mean, if you look at that, to me, that's the number one thing to look at when it comes to your health. You can always work on the physical stuff, but if you're not addressing the family traumas that come down, that pass themselves energetically from one generation to the next through something like recall healing, family constellation therapy, gestalt therapy, timeline therapy, all these different types of therapies help you to address the emotion code, the body code. All of these things help to address unresolved traumas that are setting our subconscious mind up for disease, because it really doesn't matter what your conscious mind believes. What matters is what your subconscious mind believes. So if consciously we think that we're going to live till we're 500 years old, but our subconscious doesn't believe that, then it doesn't matter what the conscious mind believes. So we need to get down to the deeper, more spiritual aspects of our health, and that is our subconscious mind, our spiritual growth. So combining all of these aspects, light, water, magnetism, photons, electrons, deuterium, cleansing and detox, physical stuff, fitness, diet, food, superfoods, cleansing, all this kind of stuff. This is where true health comes from. And this is why we built the Extreme Health Academy, actually. I mean, this is why we were doing that, because I'm not seeing the holistic approach to all of these things. Like, I'll see people that are entrenched in the food world, but they're not protecting their eyes. I see people in the light world that don't think that spirituality and family trauma comes down and affects our physical body. I see people in the light world that don't understand as much about the food world, and there's so many like different pockets of natural health that in our academy, this is what we try to do, is to bring all of this stuff together and bring it all on the table so that we can work on every single level. And that's why we do what we do, because I really do think and believe that there are ways that we can heal ourselves. The cure for cancer, people are like, the cure for cancer, march for the cure, and all this stuff. Well, you know, the cure for cancer is a strong immune system, right? And the way we do that is we alter our environment so our immune system becomes what it is designed to be. So this is where the environment comes in, the 5G, the dirty electricity, the light, and all the stuff we're exposed to. So it's really important to fill and flood your mind with information that's going to radically help you. Justin, I don't know if you mentioned the brands of red LEDs you use at home. Did I miss that? Yeah, I didn't really talk about it too much. It's available in our store. It's the Joovv, Joovv red light therapy device. That's the one that we have. That's one I use for 10 minutes every day, and that's available in our store if you guys are interested in that. And so it's really like offense defense kind of thing when it comes to light, because you want to defend yourself against all the blue light and all the bad light, right? But then you also want to make sure you get all the good stuff. The good stuff is going to come from the sun. There's no way around that. But if you can't get as much sun as you like, then obviously something like a red light therapy device. Our saunas are also far infrared light. They're far infrared sauna. It's far infrared rays. So that's an aspect of getting light as well. The Power of the Subconscious Mind. That's a great book. Okay, cool. I shared some little tips and hacks inside the academy of helping reprogram my subconscious mind through some software and some writing down of goals and integrating that into an audio format. So if you guys are interested in that, that's available in the forums. Oh yeah, root canals too. That's, on a physical level, that's one of the first things that needs to be addressed before you start looking at anything else, superfoods, anything else, is your root canals and your oral pathology, because there's a direct correlation. This is why I'm such a big fan of our dentist, biological dentist, Dr. Stuart Nunley. He is an amazing guy, and I cannot recommend, we're in Southern California and he's in Texas. This is how much A, I think dentistry is important, but B, I think that Dr. Nunley is just the best biological dentist in the world. This is how much it means to me. So Kate and I had twin boys. They're 8 months old now. In January 1st, they were around 6 months old. We drove 3 days with 6-month-old twins all the way from Southern California to Marble Falls, Texas, to go get work done by Dr. Stuart Nunley. This is how important I think oral pathology is, and this is how much I think he is the most amazing and the best biological dentist in the world. You should see his facility. It's amazing, and it's worth it. So we just, you can put it on Care Credit, which is what we did. They'll take your Care Credit. You pay it off over time, and talk about a way less burden on your immune system. They're talking about breast cancers now being directly correlated to root canals. This is one of the reasons why Amazon removed that documentary called Root Cause, because the ADA did not like the fact that root canals, which is a huge part of the dental industry, are now being correlated to cancers. And they're saying that it's fake science and pseudoscience. And this documentary called Root Cause exposed all of that. And so, I think it was some California congressman wrote a letter to our buddy over at Amazon. What's his name? Or was it Netflix? I forget who he wrote a letter to, asking them to pull that documentary because he thought it was pseudoscience, because, the truth is getting out. And this is why it's really important for all of us to address our oral health. I mean, it's not sexy. It doesn't sound fun. It's not fun to talk about, but nothing sucks more than when you're just have a root canal or some abscessed tooth that's giving you all kinds of pain, sensitive to things. Nothing hurts more than that. So it's really important to get your oral pathology fixed and corrected. So find a biological dentist. If you're anywhere near Marble Falls, Texas, just fly there. Put it on Care Credit. I mean, that's what we did, and it was one of the best decisions we ever made. I went in 2010 to get my mercury fillings removed by Dr. Nunley. Then I went again in 2013 to get my root canal taken out and my 4 wisdom teeth, the cavitations that I had there, fixed. Because in 2000, I had all 4 of my wisdom teeth removed for no other reason than the dentist said I should do it. So I went and had that done, not thinking, being stupid. And there were 4 cavitations. And Dr. Nunley did a pathology of the bacteria that were in them. And I have the paperwork. I could share it on a show. You would not believe the bacteria and what was in those 4 cavitations in my 4 wisdom teeth. So I had those fixed. I had my root canal fixed. And then just recently we had some, just a regular cleanup and, session. I'm telling you guys, it's one of the most important things you could ever do for your health. So dental health, super, super important. Jerry Tennant talks a lot about it. I think he's coming on the show real soon. I don't think he's coming on the show. We reached out to him years ago, but we haven't had much luck. We've kind of gone back and forth. For those who don't know, Dr. Jerry Tennant I think he's a former doctor, but he's got a book called Healing is Voltage. And so he's a really tremendous guy. And he's out there in Texas as well. Eric, if you go to Dr. Nunley or a good biological dentist, they'll do what they call conscious sedation, which is I forget exactly what's in it, but it's a natural way to sedate the body. And it's tremendous. Vonda says, Dr. Cruz, who was a dentist, said it doesn't matter to remove the filling. The Mida will clear all of it. Yeah, Dr. Cruz before he was a neurosurgeon, he was a dentist. Crazy, right? I mean, what hasn't this guy done, right? It's for me, I am so glad that I got my root canals out. I'm telling you, and the fillings removed too. I do not trust what's in those fillings in combination with how our environment is being altered. So at the time that Dr. Cruz said this, perhaps 5G wasn't even something that was on his mind. I know he's said this before, and I've listened to many of his talks, and he's been on the show a few times, Dr. Cruz. For me, If I'm, 90 years old, I'm not, I'm going to follow his advice. But being the age that I am, I'm going to get that thing removed, that mercury filling removed, especially if it's done by a biological dentist like Dr. Nunley. I mean, there's not a lot of guys, in my opinion, that are that high caliber and have that quality of equipment at his office. So could be a tracking device in that filling. Yeah, who knows, right? I mean, who knows? I don't know what's in that filling. And when you look at 5G, and now they're talking about 6G, and these things are antennas. And, the mitochondria could deal with something like that for sure, but that assumes that your mitochondria are all optimized. And if they're not all optimized because of the environment and stress and work and things, then you got a real issue. So I just err on the side of getting it removed. That's my opinion. But, it's hard to argue against a guy like Dr. Cruz with all of his knowledge, but I'm just... context is really important too. What are you dealing with? Do you have an active cancer, for example? Are you 80, 90 years old? Are you on your way out? Are you 20 years old? Are you healthy? What's the context of the situation? Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed that show. We could have gone on forever. I told him we were going to go for an hour, but it's been 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I think we should probably go. I got to go eat my breakfast. I've been doing intermittent fasting, so I haven't had anything to eat yet today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you for all of your ongoing support. First of all, let me just say thank you to all of you in the chat room for your continued patronage and support and sharing our shows. And there's a number of different ways you can do that if you like, and it would really help us a lot. We would greatly appreciate it. If you're a subscriber in iTunes, you get a show every single day. So make sure to leave us a rating and review on iTunes and subscribe there. If you would like to support us on Patreon, you can send like $1 a month, $2, $10 a month, whatever you feel is we're worth. And then if you purchase on Amazon, you can buy through our Amazon link that's on our homepage, Extreme Health Radio. Just remember to think about that next time you go to Amazon, and remember the work that we're doing, and go through our link. And nothing changes on your end. It's just that we get a little commission of your order. And if you do that every time you make a purchase there, that really supports the show. Second to lastly, there's our store. So there's the Juve red light therapy device that we talked about. There's the Stockton Aloe 1. There's the Blue Shield products from Brandon Amalani. There's the Relax Far Infrared Sauna, and all the products that we talked about, the Magnetico, the Bellicons, things like that in our store. So if you're in the market for those things, consider buying through our link, and that keeps everything free. So we appreciate that a lot. And finally, the sort of creme de la creme of how you can support us and also get tremendous value is our academy, and that's available to all of you guys. If you guys want to check out a free 14-day trial where we go even deeper than all of this stuff, it is available at extremehealthacademy.com, and then enter the code EHR14, and that will give you 2 weeks free. Try it out. Check out the forums, tag me in the forums, make some friends, start going through the courses that we have there, and take your health to brand new levels. So love you guys a lot. I'm just happy to be here. You guys are amazing. Spaceman, Darren, Vonda, Eric, Anthony, Big Fat Mama. You guys are all awesome. Ronan, Eric, Anthony. Man, you guys are so cool. Thank you guys for being here. We have a cancellation on Wednesday, so it looks like there'll be no show on Wednesday unless that gets filled. But we'll be back on Friday, so make sure to do that. Come and join us on Friday if you would. That would be a lot of fun. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys and stuff. It's just a lot of fun. So thank you all very, very much. Hopefully you enjoyed that show, and we'll see you on Friday.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse